Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is Dan Cooks Food, and today we are doing a Bream ceviche. A really simple dish. Pretty much anyone can put this together as long as you've got semi-decent knife skills and a little bit of time. So let's jump straight into it. So first thing, main ingredient is your sea bream. We are just going to use the flesh of this. We don't want the skin, anything like that. So first things first, we're going to take the fillets off. Get rid of that fin, gets in the way, don't need it. Scissors is the best. If you try and chop through it with a knife you'll get stuck. First incision, just behind the head, round about here. If you're hitting bone, you're a little bit too high up. Turn the fish round, and then you want to follow the spine all the way down, and again you'll hit a row of bones in the middle. Stop there. The tail end you should come through nice and easily, then underneath and follow it back up to the top, and then just take the fillet off around about here. Flip it over and then do the same again. Try and keep your knife clean between takes, just to keep them scales and stuff out of the way. So same as before, just behind the head on an angle, bring it round, and then follow the spine all the way to the tail, so that middle ridge of bones. Bring it through, grab the tail, all the way back to the head, and then just take it off. That could have been cleaner. I'm a little bit out of practice, I do apologise. Anything like that, put it in the freezer. It's great for fish stock. Break it down, take the eyeballs out, things like that. But there's loads of flavour in that, so don't waste this. I'm going to make something out of that later, so we'll keep it. So bring your fillets back, give your board a wipe, give your knife a wipe, keep things clean, just makes it easier. So now we're going to skin the fillets. So nice little cut just above the tail, hold on to that. To make a little incision, and then keep your knife flat to the surface, back and forth, skin comes off nice and clean. Okay, once the skin's off, you just want to trim away anything undesirable and get rid of any bones as well that you may come across. Make it hard to cut, as you can see. There will be a ridge of bones down the middle. You can pin bone this if you were going to cook it whole. You can pin bone this, but we're just going to cut around the middle there and get rid of all the bones. And there's a little bit of sinew that, because we're basically cooking this raw, using this raw, you don't want any sinew in there. You want it to be as much lean meat as possible. So you just go down the middle, get rid of any bones, get rid of any belly parts, anything like that, so they're nice and clean. So once this is done, give your knife and your board another quick clean, and literally just slice your fish into cubes. The size kind of depends on how big you like it, it's personal preference. I tend to go sort of a centimetre by a centimetre. If you go too small, when you add the lime juice and stuff later, you tend to make it go a little bit tough. If it's too big, then it won't cure all the way in the lime juice and you don't get the correct texture. So it can be pretty rough, but like I say, around a centimetre square gives you enough texture, enough size for it to give you a nice mouthfeel without it being too small. So the next step is the cooking of the fish. Now, it's actually technically raw. What we're going to do is add lime juice to this, and it gives you a texture similar to that of cooked fish whilst keeping it raw. Basically, the acid in the lime juice attacks the proteins in the fish and sort of breaks it down, very similar to the way you would cooking, but obviously you are leaving it raw. For this reason, try and use the freshest fish you can find, just for safety reasons. But yeah, literally, lime juice goes over that, and you leave it for about 20 minutes in the fridge, and that'll literally just cook as it is in the lime juice, and it'll be ready to go. Now, keep that lime juice, because that's going to draw out all the flavour of the fish as well. It's going to take it on, it's going to change its sort of change its state. It's going to start being called leche de tigre, or tiger's milk. So we'll keep that separate, and then we're going to use that to finish the dish when it's ready. So at this point, once your ceviche is sat in the fridge for about 20 minutes in that lime juice, it's pretty much ready to go. Now, it's not going to taste great by itself. You want to bring a little bit of flavour to it. So we're going to do a little sort of salsa, I guess you'd call it, with avocado, mango, chilli, and a little bit of mint in there. The mint isn't really traditional, but I think it really complements the flavour, so we're going to go with it, this one. Firstly, avocado. Now, you'll see a lot of people cutting avocados into their hands like this. I personally do it a lot of the time, but if you're scared you might cut yourself, keep it on a board and just cut downwards, and you can roll it as you would if it was in your hand, but you're keeping your fingers out of the way. That just reduces any risk of you hitting into the avocado and chopping your hand off. Easy. Once the stone's out, best way to peel it is by scooping the flesh with a spoon. Just keeps everything whole. If you want to use the avocado as it is, it's relatively intact. Obviously we're going to dice this up, so it doesn't really matter. So you want to keep the dice roughly the same as the size of the fish, about 1 centimetre, something like that. Try not to damage it too much. If you've got a really ripe avocado, it's going to fall apart a little bit. That's just part of, that's just avocados, that's their nature. But yeah, just dice it up. Again, it can be a little bit rough. This is a rustic dish. Next up is the mango. Literally dice that up the same as you did with the avocado, same kind of size. Now, admittedly, they can be quite hard to peel and prep and get to this stage. I wasn't actually going to use this for this dish, so I've already peeled it, so I can't show you how to actually prep it. It's very similar to the avocado. You just sort of, rather than going straight through the middle, you find where the stone is and go to the side, take the sides off, and then you can take the skin off relatively easily. But yeah, literally all you want to do, dice it up, again, about the same kind of size as you did with your fish and your avocado. So next up is the chilli. Now, these little red chilies can be a little bit devious sometimes. They can be quite hot and they can go quite mild. So the best way to check what your chili is literally just take the very end piece off and eat it. Now, the flesh is usually milder than the seeds anyway, but it gives you a good sort of gauge. This one is not too bad. There's a little bit of heat in there, but it's quite sweet. So this is how you kind of tell how much you're going to use. We're not going to use the seeds for this one, so just strip them out, and then we'll just dice up the flesh nice and fine. This needs to be quite small, because you want it to sort of distribute out evenly throughout everything. If it's really big, you'll just get big chunks of chili, so there'll be nothing, and then all of a sudden you'll get this whack of heat, and it can be quite unpleasant. So just be a little bit more careful with this one than you were with the mango and the avocado. Just try and get it, it doesn't have to be like dust, but try and get it as fine as you can. Next up, you've got the mint. Get all your leaves together, sort of pile them up nicely, and then give them a little bit of a roll. Try and keep them as one. It just makes it easier to slice. Hopefully you can see that from this angle. And then again, nice and fine. Again, it doesn't need to be dust, it doesn't need to be non-existent, but you want a nice distribution of the mint throughout the whole dish. So as fine as you can get it, that should be fine. So at this point, hopefully you can see from here, the fish has started to go a little bit pale, started to go sort of opaque in colour, like it's been cooked. It's probably been in there about 15-20 minutes. That's pretty much where I want it. Now you can leave it a little bit longer, and it does depend on what you're using. Obviously we're using quite a firm fleshed fish at this point. If the pieces were bigger, again, I'd leave it longer. But things like shrimp, things that like whitefish, they don't need much longer. Firm things like sea bass, sea bream, they can take a little bit longer. However, for me, this is about perfect. So what I'm going to do, drain off that lime juice, keep it, because obviously there's flavour in there, you don't want to waste it, and we're going to use that to finish it. And so that's the fish, and now that will stop cooking because the lime juice has come off. It's no longer submerged, so that's going to stop. You can do this in advance if you want. It is better fresh, but like I say, there's no reason for you not to do this maybe a couple of hours before and just keep it in the fridge. Okay, so now I'm going to start building the ceviche. So fish goes in, add probably half the amount of mango as you have fish. You don't want it to be all fruit, but you want to make a nice even distribution. Probably the same amount of avocado as you use mango. A little bit of the chili, and again you can add more or less if you feel the balance is not quite there. You can add more or less of this as you go along, but just put a small amount in. You can always add, but you can't take away. Next up is the mint. Quite a bit of that in there. Toss it all around. A little bit of salt. Just give it a little bit of a taste, try and get a little bit of everything in there. I think that's about right. Again, this can chill in the fridge for a short while. Pretty much ready to go. I'm going to do a little garnish with that though, which I'll show you next. So the next step, we're going to do crispy rice noodles. These are just fresh, ready to go, bought from the supermarket, really easy to get hold of. It's not really traditional, but I think it just adds a really great texture to the dish that you don't really get throughout the ceviche. It's quite soft, so this is a nice little garnish, relatively easy to put together, and it just sort of elevates the dish to a new level, I think. All you need, a little pan of oil, bring it up to about 180, get yourself one of these. They're really inexpensive, less than a tenner, and it's perfect for this. It's going to tell you exactly what this temperature is, which just helps you keep the cooking consistent. Not to mention, you know, if you've got anything cooking in the oven that you're unsure of, you know, you want to take it to a nice medium rare, then ideal. You just stick this in. It's a really great tool. Okay, so my oil's coming up just over 180, so we should be fine. Literally, all you got to do, small handful of these, straight in. Instantly they're going to start popping up, bubbling away. When the bubbles start to subside a little bit, take them out and they're done. Try not to colour them too much. A little bit of golden brown on there, going to ensure they stay nice and crispy, but you don't want them going black, so take them out pretty quickly. Like I say, that only took, what, 30 seconds? Okay, so we've got our crispy rice noodles here. They've drained, they've crisped up nicely, a little bit of salt on there, and they're completely cool, which is very important. I'm just going to garnish this with a few fresh herbs, because this is going to sit on top of our dish, and you want it to look pretty. Obviously, it's going to add some nice flavour as well. But this is just some dill and some fresh pea shoots. Both of these should be pretty easy to come by. And again, they're just going to add a little bit of freshness to the dish, a little bit of colour. Just, you know, random placements really. Just try and get a nice covering on there. Maybe try and get a little bit of height if you can. Stick them through the gaps. But that should do. And like I say, it's just going to add a little bit of colour, a little bit of freshness, a little bit of flavour to the dish. Just top it off nicely, I think. Okay, last but not least, and in some people's eyes, most importantly, we have our leche de tigre here, which is the lime juice, which has the fish cooked in it. This, you can kind of see, it's kind of gone a little bit milky, obviously, hence the name. That's just where the fish is cooked out and the proteins have leached into the lime juice. I'm going to add a little bit of sesame oil to that. I just like the flavour, adds a real nice savoury kick to the dish. Turns this into more of a vinaigrette. Not traditional, I know. People out there are probably going to go crazy for over this. But literally, just mix that in. Don't go mad with sesame oil, it's quite strong, but I think it just adds a really nice flavour. And that should top the dish off nicely. Add a little bit of richness, a little bit of fat to it, because there's not a lot of fat in this. The bass is obviously quite a lean sort of fish, and the rest of it's fruit. So that's how I finish this anyway. So the build is extremely easy. We've pretty much done all the work with the ceviche anyway. So just pile this into the bowl. Pretty much going to use all of this anyway. Make sure it's nicely mixed. Obviously we seasoned it up earlier, so we know that's all good. Get a decent little pile there. Now, if you don't want to put the noodles on, this is a great filling for like soft shell tacos, something like that. It's a really nice sort of fresh thing. You can serve it as it is, as like a salad for a buffet or something like that, if you want to. But yeah, literally straight in the bowl. A little bit of our leche de tigre with the sesame oil in there. You want quite a bit of this. The best part is when you finish it and you get to drink this leche de tigre from the bottom of the bowl. And obviously the final step, be careful with this because it can be a bit fragile. Just place it on the top, and obviously you'll break through that. So, not to blow my own horn, but this is really, really nice. The crunch is definitely needed. So yeah, thank you for tuning in. I apologise if this seems a little bit rushed, this episode. I do apologise for that. I'm trying to juggle doing this alongside doing a full-time job. I've just come in and I wasn't actually planning on doing anything today, but I went shopping after work, picked up these ingredients, and it was kind of a spur of the moment thing. So thank you for bearing with me whilst I'm in the kind of, I'm still new to this, I'm still trying to get used to it. So nice one, cheers for tuning in, and I'll see you around.